Great, and it looks like we're ready to go ahead and get started. So again, thank you all so much for being here. Thanks in advance to the amazing student researcher panelists that we have. I know they look forward to answering my questions, but more particularly your questions about Learn by Doing research here at Cal Poly. My name is Jane Leer. I will be hosting and facilitating our conversation today. I'm the director of our Office of Student Research, and then also a faculty member active in the College of the Arts, Engineering, and then also Science and Mathematics. In terms of what we're doing today, so we're in the introduction part where I say we are so excited that you are here and to share with you. Most of our session will be an interactive student researcher panel, and we'll learn a little bit more about the panelists in a couple minutes. I have a couple questions for the panelists, but you'll also be able to submit questions through the Q&A that you want to ask the panel or a particular panelist or about undergraduate research in general here at Cal Poly. And then at the end, we'll talk about some next steps for how you can learn more about opportunities to learn by doing research at Cal Poly, and of course, why you should choose Cal Poly for next year. We do also have some special guests here alongside our special guests of the student researchers. And so we wanted to let you know that these folks were here with us. We have the Vice President for Research and Economic Development, the Associate Vice President for Research, Associate Dean in the College of Science and Mathematics, and then two of us who can also talk about some university-wide programs, the Beacon Mentors Program, and then also the CSU LSAMP program. Again, some of these folks will be responding to your questions in the Q&A, and if it makes sense, we'll bring them in. But again, I think most of the questions will go to our awesome panelists. Great. And so here's a list of our panelists. We have 6, which is amazing. And one of them asked earlier, what percentage of the colleges did we cover with all of their majors and minors? I selected panelists. It was actually very hard to choose. So I had a quadruple long list of backups and backups, but I was really delighted that all of these students said yes to being here today. And as you'll see, they have majors and minors across colleges. And then as you hear about their research, you'll also see that some of it has been quite interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. So I'm going to go ahead to my first question. And so for each of our panelists, starting with Rebecca, we want to know more about your research. In 2 to 3 sentences, what does your research explore and how is your research making a difference?
Hi everyone, so I'm Rebecca and my research is about racial and ethnic health disparities, more specifically on health education and communication strategies. Most of the project I've worked on focused on breast cancer and hepatitis B. And my research is making a difference by contributing to solutions that disproportionately overburden the health of underserved communities of color.
And then Fiona?
Hi everyone, my name's Fiona. My pronouns are she and her. For this question, I mostly answered it with my research that I've presented for the CSU-wide research competition, which is a remembrance project of sex workers' histories, specifically in San Luis Obispo. So it uncovers histories that are often lost to colonial or dominant structures. And then some of my other research is in public health and college food insecurity.
Autumn?
Hey everyone, I'm Autumn, they, them pronouns, and my research was with the Central Coast Queer Archive Project, which is an ongoing archival research project that aims to find LGBTQ members of the Central Coast population and currently senior members, because we want to record their stories, and let them record and tell their stories in an interactive oral history type situation. Its goal is to have these narratives like stored for the future so that students, staff, anyone can access these stories and not let them fade away. And it helps to let others understand what the Central Coast was and is like as a queer person.
Thank you so much. Priscilla?
Hi everyone, I'm Priscilla, and I study the formation and evolution of galaxies. I've studied different types of galaxies and the way that they evolve in the stellar populations within them, so the stars. And my research makes a difference by studying a system that is around us, the universe, and specifically something within it that we really don't know a lot about at all, as well as contributing a lot, giving a lot of opportunities to students to get hands-on research in a field where it can be kind of difficult to do that.
Awesome, great. And then Gabrielle?
Hi folks, I work on a few different projects spanning computer science and science and technology studies. I think the one that I'll probably talk about more today is stuff across kind of like expressive technologies and community workshops, but also looking at what it means for cultures of computer science and what the gender representation looks like and what we can learn from across subdisciplines. And so those have very, those tend to affect both how computing and engineering is enacted both kind of at a kind of a national level, but also at the kind of institutional level here at Cal Poly.
Great, and then Nicole?
Hi, so my research is mostly focused on a very cool animal model for human disease. We're studying the Iberian pig, which has a genetic mutation which predisposes it to obesity. And so we look at how various diets affect their health, and hopefully we'll be able to apply those insights to human nutrition and health as well.
Great, thank you so much. I want to go ahead and ask the next question, which is Cal Poly has many different opportunities for undergraduates to get involved in research. Can you tell us more about how you got involved? And that could be how you initially got involved, how you've gotten involved with different projects, etc. And we'd also love to hear a bit more about how you've been supported and mentored and encouraged through your research experiences. So I think we decided to start with Rebecca again.
Okay, awesome. So I got involved in research my second quarter of freshman year, and I did so by looking up faculty profiles and academic interests on their Cal Poly page website. And once I identified the research topics I was interested, I reached out to them via email and I set up a meeting to just further understand their ongoing projects. I have been fully supported by so many different programs at Cal Poly, such as the Frost Fund, the Beacon Scholarship, the LSAMP Research Scholars Program, the Howard Superb Award, and the Baker Coob Award. And I also work as a research analyst for faculty at UCSF School of Medicine.
Rebecca, you just talked a lot about a bunch of different programs, and I know some of the other students have been supported by some of those and some different ones too. Could you tell us a little bit about at least one or two of the programs that you mentioned?
Yes, definitely. So the LSAMP Research Scholars Program has funded my summer research opportunity last year, and LSAMP focuses on underrepresented minorities in science, just like STEM in general, and they provide a stipend for me to stay in SLO over the summer and work on my research project, and it was very successful. Now we just sent the manuscript for publication, so we're just waiting on that. It was very productive, and I mean, the Frost Fund, I did it for 3 consecutive quarters in my public health and kinesiology department. And basically the Frost Fund paid me to do research. So all of those different opportunities I mentioned, they paid for me to do research. And if they were over the summer, they helped me stay on campus during that term.
That's awesome. And I think we'll hear about some of the other programs from some of the other panelists. But I'm really excited that you shared about the Bill and Linda Frost Fund in the College of Science and Mathematics, which is focused on supporting undergraduate research as a primary way to learn by doing, as well as the LSAMP program, which is the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation in STEM. Let's go ahead and move to Fiona. And again, Fiona, the question is, there are lots of different opportunities for undergraduates to get involved. Tell us more about how you got involved in one or more of your projects, and then how you've been supported, encouraged, and mentored in your research.
Yeah, so all of my projects that I'm associated with now were suggested to me to be a part of by faculty or like other professors that I have a mentor relationship with. And so they're funded from a bunch of different sources. I first was a Food Stirs intern, which is from my former college, the College of Agriculture, to where I did research. Like I was basically a research assistant for another grad student. And then my other projects are funded from the NIH or the CSU Chancellor's Office, to where I receive just like hourly wage for like part-time research. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the ways in which you've worked with faculty, or a little bit more about those mentoring relationships, Fiona?
Yeah, so two of the projects that I'm on, and one of my other program jobs that I have is with Dr. Aidan Nazmi, and I originally reached out to him because I wanted to do more public health facing research when I originally was a food science major, and so I got involved on these projects through his help and kind of guiding me through it. And then now I am in the interdisciplinary studies and liberal arts major.
Thank you so much. So Autumn, the research project that you mentioned earlier was through the Beacon Mentors program. And so can you tell us a bit more about how you got involved with it, what Beacon is, and then your relationship and what you gained with your work with your mentor, Professor Ruzinski?
Totally. So I got started with undergrad research through Beacon, as Dr. Leer said earlier, which is a mentorship program for underrepresented and marginalized students. I myself, being a transgender, non-binary, queer person, didn't see a lot of that diversity reflected in faculty, but I found people that were interested in my interests, namely queer history, outreach and engagement, and were able to help me with those endeavors. And working with Dr. Ruzinski, my mentor, allowed me to find someone who was also passionate about the same kind of research, and helps me look for ways to further that goal after Cal Poly.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And then Priscilla, could you share with us?
So I've seen some of the questions in the Q&A have asked particularly about this. I was a transfer student to Cal Poly as well. And I actually got started my summer before even starting classes on research. So I contacted all of the faculty who were in my department that were doing any research remotely related to what I was interested in, and asked if they had a position over summer that I could get started on, even if it was just kind of on my own, like doing background research or anything. And I was very fortunate to get started on 2 projects that summer, as well as be supported by the Frost Fund as well, partially over that summer. And yeah, that's kind of where that started. And I've worked with I've done grant funded research. So that's through my actual faculty members who I work with that have grants from like the NSF, the National Science Foundation, or some other big, organization that provides grant money for that, as well as off-campus research. And I was also a Beacon Scholar, which I don't think anyone has explained the Beacon program yet. And that is, it's big. I feel like there's different aspects to it. There's a Beacon mentoring program, which essentially is this awesome program we have that links up students with faculty members, and this could be interdisciplinary, so you could be linked with a mentor across a different field. but they're there to provide support and to give you advice and anything you might need. And it's specifically for students who are minority students as well. And so I was a Beacon Research Scholar, which is another aspect of the program, which is research-based. So you're paid to do research, 10 hours of research a week, and you receive like this stipend during the actual school year. So yeah, that's another wonderful research opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Priscilla, because there are so many different ways to get involved with research at Cal Poly, really at all points of the calendar year. And so a lot of the students on the panel here have participated in summer undergraduate research programs. Others have been involved with Beacon during the academic year. I think some other students have done other academic year research via grant funding, as we've heard, via course credit or research credit. And so thank you for highlighting that. I want to go now to Gabriel to answer the question.
Cool. So I worked on a few projects. The first one I worked on was actually through the College of Engineering Summer Undergraduate Research Program, or short SERP. That's a really cool program. I started looking at research in my third year, so it's pretty late. But that program is specifically for like students who are looking to get research experience, and that is like really accessible for not just like people who are a little bit late to the game, but also like first and second years as well. And so that was neat to work. I was lucky that my project was funded multiple students, so we kind of worked as like a small lab, and worked also very closely with our lab instructor as well, our lab manager. And so I've also worked on programs that are funded by federal programs like the National Science Foundation and TRIO, as well as Cal Poly departments like the Provost Office or other stuff.
Great, thank you so much. And then Nicole, in addition to answering the question, which is about the many different opportunities to get involved and how you got involved, I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about your experience, at least so far, with the CSU Research Competition.
Absolutely. Yeah, so first for the original question, I got involved pretty early in a couple of kind of, I guess, distinct research experiences. And really, I just went and talked to my professors during their office hours. I remembered them mentioning their research during lectures, and I was intrigued, and I went and talked to them, asked if I could participate, and the answer was often, yeah, sure, come on in, check it out, see if you like it. And I did. First, I worked at an embryology lab. This was more of an assistant role. There was a grad student who was designing the majority of the experiment, and I was just helping her out. Another, the experience I mentioned before, that I got in kind of on a ground floor of a study that was just starting up, and I helped with sort of animal care and setup, and then I kind of moved up through the ranks a bit and did a bit more work in the lab, and now I'm actually actively participating in the paper that we are publishing. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, the professors it varies how much of a mentorship role they provide, and some labs are a bit more hands-off. You know, you work with the students that are already there, and it's a more of like a structured. With others, I've experienced a very direct involvement from the professor themselves, you know, actively encouraging me to keep pushing myself, trying new things. Participating in the research competition that I will also be talking about. So the competition, basically students are invited to present their research as a representative of our school in a competition involving all the CSU campuses. And I think they rotate where the final competition is going to be held. This year it was supposed to be at CSU East Bay, but now it is occurring digitally. We're still doing it though, which is very cool. But yeah, you present your work to a committee and kind of competing among your Cal Poly peers. And then if you're selected to move on, you get to represent your school amongst all the other campuses.
Great, thank you so much. And for those of you who are interested, because the CSU Research Competition is happening virtually, students representing Cal Poly had the opportunity to record videos, as Nicole identified. And many of those videos are available at studentresearch.calpoly.edu on the CSU Research Competition tab, including Nicole's, which is down at the bottom because of her last name, not because of its interest. I was so excited that Fiona and Nicole, as well as the 8 other students, were selected from a huge number of competitive projects to represent our campus. So it looks like we have a couple of questions coming in. I know some of them are being addressed via text, but it looks like there's some questions around the availability of research opportunities for international students and then also for undocumented students. And I can start by talking a little bit about for undocumented students. So as the students were talking, there's a bunch of different ways in which student researchers are supported. In some cases, that's through course credit. In some cases, that's through an hourly wage that may come from a federal or a state grant. And in other cases, it's through a stipend that's paid through the financial aid office, and the Beacon Mentors program is stipend funded, as well as many of the summer undergraduate research program opportunities. And what's fantastic about these opportunities for students, which are focused on their educational and professional development, is that it counts as part of student training. It's not considered a job. And so students do not need, for some of our stipended programs, students do not need to have work authorization in order to participate in those stipended research programs because of the educational and professional development benefit. And so many of our research opportunities on campus are accessible for undocumented students. And I think really the whole campus is committed to making sure that undocumented students at Cal Poly have access to the same high quality learn by doing opportunities as all of the students on campus. And so we definitely would be working with you to make sure that you had the support to do the project that you wanted. And then some of the other programs, for example, the Frost Fund Award, also offer that same opportunity. I can talk a little bit about research opportunities for international students, unless somebody else, I didn't know if anybody else wanted to jump in on that. So again, you know, this is for opportunities through course credit, through internship credit, and then those awarded or stipended opportunities. Some of those may be available to international students without work authorization. And then if students do have work authorization during their educational experience at Cal Poly, there's also the opportunity to connect with other research opportunities. Okay, it looks like some of our student panelists are seeing some questions that they want to respond to. And so I'm wondering if they could share the question and then respond. So Gabrielle, did you see a question in there that you wanted to respond to?
I was halfway through typing it, but I will just finish. I will go ahead and say what the question was. It was looking at the type of research that software engineers can do at Cal Poly. That usually takes 2 looks. One, either looking at like the practice of software engineering, or also education around software engineering. So an example might be looking at the role of sentiment analysis within version control projects online and how that can benefit the process. That being said, there's a lot of programs where you will take skills that can be applied to other research projects as well. So for software engineering, you will have programming skills that can be applied to other computer science projects or other like projects that need computational science skills involved.
Yeah, and is it right, Priscilla, that your research group in physics or astronomy has also included some computer science or software engineering students at some time?
Yes, we did. We've had one computer science student, and we actually have a large amount of aerospace engineers. And that was another thing I've seen brought up a lot in the Q&A is as far as, I don't know about the research that goes on in engineering. There seems to be quite a few questions about that, but it is very common in the physics department that if there is an overlap between the area of engineering that a student is studying as well as the physics behind it and maybe active physics research going on, that we have a lot of engineering students who also participate in our in the physics labs doing research.
Yeah, and I want to open that question up for any student panelist who wants to respond. And so the question is about what does it look like to have research opportunities both within your major, but also outside of your major, and how do you get connected to those? Autumn, did you say that you wanted to share a bit about that?
Totally. So I started out research doing botanical research with a professor in the COSAM department, and then later did my humanities research in the College of Liberal Arts. Neither of these were in my major or my college. They were just topics I was interested in. I built professional relationships with professors and was like, do you have research that you're interested in? Is there something I'm interested in? And we were able to find where both of our interests like kind of commingled and moved forward from there. So with the botanical research, it was a lot of like doing transects of flowers. With the CLA research, it was a lot of doing oral history, but you don't have to be locked into what your major does for your research. It can be a wide range of professors that you have throughout your time at Cal Poly.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Autumn. I think another way of saying that is that, just adding to that, Cal Poly faculty are really eager to engage and work with students in their departments and then also across the departments and colleges. You all have so many skills and so much knowledge and creativity. I think most of us as Cal Poly faculty recognize that the more interdisciplinary our team is, the better questions we're asking, the better methodologies we're utilizing, and the more of an impact that we can have because having these conversations across different disciplinary areas really helps us understand the big questions and the big challenges that we're trying to respond to at Cal Poly with our research. I'm going to ask another question and see which panelists want to respond to it. And so it seems like there are some questions about what does it look like to do research during the academic year? What does it look like to do research during the summer? And so during the academic year, how many hours do you spend on research outside of your coursework and your other responsibility? How flexible are the hours? And then what does it look like from quarter to quarter in terms of those academic year research experiences? Did anybody want to respond to that or to get us started?
I can talk about that a little bit. So with the Beacon Scholars Program that I was a part of, it was 10 hours a week for 2 quarters during the school year. So that was actively researching, or that was passively doing some reading about the process. It's a variety of things. And I think the thing that should be stressed the most is that you can make your research work around your school. You can make it work around your class. You can find the little blocks of time here and there to actively research. And even though it is 10 hours a week, the effort that you put in is the effort that you get out of it. And it's fantastic.
And Fiona, I know that you've had a bunch of, and then Nicole. So Fiona and then Nicole. Fiona, I know you've had a bunch of different research experiences and then a lot of minors and your interdisciplinary major. What has it looked like to balance that for you during the academic year?
Yeah, so I also have worked, all of the projects that I've been on, a lot of them have been occurring at the same time. And so I still won't work more than 20 hours a week because as students, that's kind of the cap that we're at. But I'm able to kind of like space out at what points in the project are going to require more time. So for example, if I was working with one study to do recruitment, that recruitment phase might require a lot of my attention. So I might take a step back from one of my other projects and then kind of just balance them as they come up. I also wanted to share an example from one of my research projects that I'm on is on the behavioral implications of behavioral epigenetics, but I'm not I don't have a very strict epigenetics or even biology background. And so I find that it sometimes works nicely to pull that project or the literature resources that I have from that project into other class projects so that I could spend more time actually working on skills that will be applicable for that research team and also for my classes. And yeah, I do have a lot of minors. That freedom is really from my new major in the interdisciplinary studies and liberal arts, but also a lot of the minors overlap, or they can also satisfy a lot of GE areas.
Great, and that's general education. And then we're gonna hear from Nicole. What did you want to share with us?
Right, so in my experience, my professors have been, the professors who run the research projects have been very understanding of the fact that we are students first most of the time, and we do have classwork. I've had very few issues scheduling my time, and they're very understanding around finals week and dead week and things like that, sometimes we're very busy with schoolwork, but just sort of planning how many classes you're taking around how much research you're expecting to do is a very important skill to learn, and sort of time management capacity. Yeah, it's definitely doable. I have 2 minors in addition to my major, one of which is in a completely different college that has no overlap with my major, but I was still able to manage that time, and I've actually graduated a quarter early in spite of all that class. So it is, if you plan your units accordingly, and I know that the situations can be very different for people who are also working all the time to provide income, who have to finance themselves, and that can be a very different situation. But yeah, everyone kind of has their own thing. I also wanted to mention summer research. I think that was part of the topic. Cal Poly has some cool funded summer programs, but I also wanted to mention that other universities have also kind of very similar programs, and most universities across the country accept students from other colleges to participate in their summer. What I'm saying is that as a student at Cal Poly, over the summer, you can apply to do research at other universities to experience other environments, other topics that you may not be able to access here. The National Science Foundation has a fantastic resource. They have a database of all of these programs that are usually well funded and will provide a stipend. At various levels, of course, it all kind of depends on your area of interest and like geographical location and all that. But I've had a fantastic experience at another university performing research. It was very cool, kind of like a mini study abroad situation, but you can stay in the country. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And I think some of our other students have had that opportunity too. And so our big challenge right now is I'm going to ask my last question. And then I know students have been monitoring the Q&A, and so they also might want to address questions they've seen there. And potentially those who are graduating might want to tell us what they're doing next, all in about 5 minutes. Okay, so my last question is, now at the conclusion of the panel, what would you say, what's the most important thing that Cal Poly Virtual Open House participants, that is future Cal Poly students and their supporters, what should they know most about the awesomeness of undergraduate research as an opportunity to learn by doing? So what's the most important thing they should take away from this session? plus anything else you want to share as you're making your last comments. So I think we're going to go ahead and start with Rebecca.
Okay, great. So I would say that the undergraduate research opportunities at Cal Poly are superior to the experience that you get in other schools. As an undergraduate in Cal Poly, I had the chance to lead research projects. I published 4 papers, and I'm currently finishing 2 more. I traveled throughout the country to attend conferences and present my research, and I just acquired so much practical knowledge. And whenever I talk to friends who go to other schools about my research experience, I realize that what we get at Cal Poly is very unique. And I've definitely gotten more exposure than most undergraduates have gotten in other institutions. So I think that's the main thing. And I think mainly because Cal Poly is an undergraduate institution, so most of the research is done by undergraduates. And I feel like in other schools sometimes it's mostly graduate students. So at Cal Poly, we are the priority. So professors really are always so open and receptive to have undergraduates in research.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Fiona, wait, actually, are you still there? Yes, Fiona, what's the most important thing that our participants should know about undergraduate research and learn by doing at Cal Poly?
Yeah, I would say if you attend panels like this and you are inspired by something that someone is saying, or if you see a faculty member and your interests also align with the faculty members, I would write down their name and then try and set up a meeting with them. That was how I've had a lot of my positions, was just by speaking with the faculty member and just saying, like, I really admire your research and I want to be a part of it. And it's generally worked out for me. And I'd also just share that I felt really confused at first when I was in college because I didn't know what to do with all of my interests. They felt, to me, they felt disjointed, but then in pursuing undergraduate research opportunities and other research assistantships, it became more and more clear to me that I just like other disciplines. I like many different things, and it's okay.
Thanks, Fiona. Let's go ahead and hear the last things that Autumn wants to share with us.
Totally. So I think one of the big things I want to stress, other than just going to the professors that you find interesting and saying, do you have stuff to do? Because 9 times out of 10, they will, is not being afraid to jump out of your comfort zone in that. Look for opportunities that look a little daunting, look a little interesting, that you don't know a ton about, but you want to know more about, because the process of research, the process of undergrad research especially, is just a gauntlet of learning and growing. And that's one of the huge takeaways I've gotten from my research here at Cal Poly, and I couldn't be more stoked about it.
Thank you so much. I think, let's see, Priscilla?
So I guess the one thing I have to share, I'll be brief, is something that I tell all of the incoming research students. As the most senior person in my lab, I'm in charge of training new students. And so the one thing I always tell them that I think is super important is that research is very intimidating and it can be scary getting started on something. And you'll feel like you might not be learning, or like you're not actually doing research, whatever idea you have of research in your head, until way later, but that you should not get discouraged by that, and that even if you don't like the research that you're doing, that's good, because you don't want to do it in the future, and there's always something to learn no matter what project you're going to be working on.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. Gabriel?
Sure. We didn't cover this as much, but research is different from working on an internship. They tend to be more individual and driven and messy. Not to say that you're wholly alone. You'll usually work closely with faculty or peers in your lab, but it's definitely different. Research is very exciting. I really love it, but it's also something that's very different. So if you don't like research or you don't get into research, also know that it's not make or break. There are certain fields where there are also very competitive experience that you can have. So for example, in civil engineering, working on the concrete canoe or steel bridge teams is a very big way to get into industry and have that experience. So if you are interested, there's very exciting ways to get involved and cool stuff to do. And it's also okay if you're not.
I think one of the amazing things about Cal Poly, as some of our student panelists have highlighted, is all the different ways you can be involved. And part of that is because you can get involved in Learn by Doing opportunities like this, starting from your first year. And so since it's not something that has to wait until your senior year, you can really build out, try out so many different things until you find what you love, or maybe the multiple things you love, and then figure out a plan for how to do all of those things. Nicole?
It's kind of hard to go last. Everyone said so many good things. Kind of went through all my bullet points. I guess what I wanted to say was you kind of get out of it what you put into it. You know, if you sort of sit around and hope for something to happen, it usually doesn't work out that way. But if you put yourself out there, if you actually take advantage of all the opportunities that are being presented to you from all these different sources, if you go talk to your professors, you can get so much out of Cal Poly Learn by Doing research. I mean, there are so many things out there. You just have to get over that threshold and just dive in. It can be very scary to approach somebody like a professor or faculty member to talk to them about something like this, but just know that the majority of the faculty here are here for the students, and they are so encouraging, and yeah, just try to go for it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I think Cal Poly faculty love being at Cal Poly. We love working with undergraduate students, and we're so excited to have you as research partners and in many ways driving a lot of our research agendas. And so I think Nicole really captured it. I know we're at time, and so I just wanted to share that you can go to studentresearch.calpoly.edu, and it will connect you to all of the different programs that we've talked about today. As I mentioned, you can also see some of the CSU Research Competition presentations that are happening. And then as well, you can email studentresearch@calpoly.edu, and I can connect any of our panelists to questions that you submit there, or respond to them in my role as the director of the Office of Student Research. And so I think that brings us to our end. I want to thank the panelists. I have so much more I want to talk to you about. I'm sure our attendees do as well. But you did fantastic. We all did fantastic at having such a big but such an important panel. I'm so glad we got to hear all your different perspectives and experiences.